Hello and welcome to All For United with me, John Foster, MUFC. Joining me tonight is Natalie and Molly. How are you both doing?
Good, John. Good,
yeah, good, thank you.
Fantastic. Really looking forward to this one. I'll give Molly a proper introduction shortly, but just to have a bit of a rundown on what to expect on tonight's show. Of course, we've got our weekly competition, so that'll be halfway through the show. But tonight we want to talk about the FA quite a lot. So I'll be interested to hear your views in the comments and Natalie and Molly's views as well. But of course, we're going to start off talking about Man United women as well. So lots to get through. Before I bring Molly in, Natalie, the internationals. So Millie Turner's got called up, and every one of our players has performed well and won. Yeah. So Nat, your thoughts on the internationals first on the game?
Yeah, I've not really watched any games, but I know Honor played for Spain. They won, I think, 13-0. She got 2 assists, assisted one for Eva Navarro. Very, very good. Kristen Press, they beat Canada. USA beat Canada. Press got the assist, really good. Scotland beat Azerbaijan 10-0, I think. Jane Ross 2 goals and Hansen a goal. And who's the last one? Jackie played for Holland. Holland won. They're already qualified, but apparently she had a really good game. So it's happy days for all our players. And I know England are going to play soon. Tooney and Millie back again. Terrible twos.
It's had to be them paired together, do the tits. Excellent. Hello, everybody in the comments. John Fry saying Kirsty Hansen looked good today. She did great. Good. I think that's the first goal, isn't it, for Scotland? I think.
Yeah. It's really good.
To see. About that. Absolutely, yeah. David Aki in the comments, our only Chelsea fan in the comments. So thank you for joining us again, David. I want to bring Molly in. So Molly, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
It's nice, an absolute pleasure. Thank you. Yeah. Just for anybody who doesn't know you or who doesn't follow you on Twitter or who isn't on Twitter, just give us a bit of insight into who you are and what you do and the kind of life that you have being a journalist.
Okay, so I am a football journalist, predominantly football for the Times newspaper. As part of that, I cover men's and women's football. I would say predominantly women's football is the thing that I kind of most enjoy. And I started sort of 2017, 2018 when I was still at uni, freelancing for the Times. And then my first sort of full-time gig, I suppose, was the World Cup for the Times in the summer of 2019. Great fun, loved every minute of it. Obviously, England lost thanks to a missed penalty because, well, we're England, aren't we? What do we expect? Came home from that and was lucky enough to be offered a full-time role at the Times. So I've been doing that ever since. We have, like a weekly women's football column that's in the paper every Monday, and then various other bits and bobs that we do, really.
Just a little bit.
Busy. Always busy women's football, isn't it?
So, do you know what? I really enjoy women's football, and I'm not just saying this because I'm on here, but the fans and the community side of it is so different to men's football, and part of the reason for that is the fact that it is smaller. And that right now you can have that sort of connection where you do get to know fans and know people. But yeah, I really love that side of it. And I love the fact that we actively, as a part of the media, actually have a role in pushing the game forward. And, all the players that you guys love and, I've grown up watching as a fan, we actually have the opportunity to tell their stories, which I think is really cool.
I've got a couple of questions actually that I was going to throw out there just regarding what have been the nicest places that you've been when following or reporting on a game, so some of the nice places that you've been to, either countries or stadiums, and also the players that you may have met. Have you got any kind of favourite players? So sorry I've caught you off the cuff a little bit there, but I'm sure you don't mind answering a couple of those.
No, we were just saying before off camera that this time last year I was in at the She Believes Cup with England, which was amazing. My first time in America. brilliant experience. You know, it's a bit of a strange situation for people that maybe don't know. With the She Believes, you in normal times anyway fly into 3 different states. You know, internal flights, a lot of travel. You're sort of in one game, write your feature, and then get out to the next one. So it's a really full-on experience, but it's, you know, an amazing experience to get to go to America for work essentially, and you get sort of a couple of days either end. Myself and Susie Rack and Emma Sanders, who I know you've had on here, we managed to get in a trip to Orlando studios. Did all of that while I was out there, so that was a really amazing, lovely experience. And yeah, it's a bit of a weird one. I've been so lucky to travel to some really amazing places, but sometimes you're not in them very long. One of the maybe bad memories I have is, I don't know if you guys remember last year, God, we've done nothing in the last year. The year before last, when England played Czech Republic in the snow, and it was cold, it was grim, and we were speaking to Phil after, and he was just like, why did we do this? Like, he was thinking that, the players were thinking it, we were thinking it was so cold. But yeah, really lucky to be able to travel the world, I suppose. And I can't remember what your other question was. This is why I asked the question, because I don't even remember.
It's okay. Just players who you've come across whilst doing your job that may have like taken your wife for one reason or another.
Do you know what? I would say probably this. I mean, this is not a good thing to say on a United thing, is it? Probably my favourite player of all time is Fran Kirby. Sort of grew up watching her, so I'm 22. So she was sort of coming through as I was really properly paying attention to women's football, if that makes sense. So yeah, I really love her, and obviously the story with her mum. I lost my mum not too long ago, and I just think she's, you know, one of those female players that are a really big inspiration on and off the pitch. And she's been so unlucky with injuries. So I think I enjoy players that have that story. You know what I mean? Being able to tell the story of the person as well as the player, which I know you guys know, you know, a lot about the United players as well, and that's something that I really enjoy. And I mean, in terms of players that I've watched, Rose Lavelle at the World Cup last summer, absolutely unreal. I can't believe she's not played more for Man City. When she signed, was convinced she was going to be, you know, the person we was all talking about week in and week out. Hasn't quite worked out like that, but watching her at that World Cup, she was a very, very good player.
Yeah, Mol, listen, our resident Chelsea fan will thank you for saying Fran Kirby. No, but, you know, obviously me and John say, you know, different players. I know when we had Emma, Sean, who's a City podcaster, I said Sam Mewis is the best midfielder. I think I always speak to a lot of American fans who either join in today or watch later, and we say, you know, they can't believe that Rose isn't, like what you said, smashing it up, because even when you see her, she scored the goal against Canada, that press up. I mean, they can't believe that press isn't lining it up as much for us. And I just think, I suppose it's the different leagues, different styles of management and all that kind of stuff that'll play a part. But no,
I think we have to remember. I think we have to remember as well, and this is easy for fans to get carried away. Actually, like, can you imagine if someone said to you right now, go and live in America in the middle of a pandemic, you've got no family, you need to go and get a house and do all this. And in the women's game, that's not as easy as it is in the men's game. Like I was saying the other day, you don't just buy a house. Like, you can't always do that. You don't have the money to do that, you know? So I think we have to be a little bit more patient with players now, because women's football is seeing so many more players come from abroad, whether it's Australia, America, and we have to give them time to settle. You know, they're not just going to walk in and be amazing, or what we might have seen them for America or whatever. They're not just going to walk in and be able to do that. I think we have to give them time.
I've got one, Molly, and it's off the cuff again, and you just made me think of it. What do you think about a lot of players coming in? Like you say, we are seeing a lot more. Me and John have been bigging up 2 players. One playing in France, but Jamaican, Bonnie Shaw, and even Navarro, who I just talked about. And they're smashing it in their leagues. But then, like you say, it's that nervousness, it's coming over, it's everything that they're going to have to do. We know they're quality players, but I mean, I'm seeing a lot of comments and people are saying, "Oh, there's a lot of foreign players," and for me, I don't like that kind of vibe. I think, you know, if they're good, they should come. And you know, with now Brexit, they're saying that it's going to be harder for these players to come over. But I think if we want it to be the best league, we should want the best players. So when you see people saying about, oh, it's stopping someone like Ebony, or it's stopping someone like LJ develop, and we need English players, what do you think when you see those views?
For me, I think if you're good enough, you'll find a way. And, you know, take Man City. I'm mentioning Man City far too much on this United podcast. Right. But if you take City and you look at Chloe Kelly and Lauren Hemp thriving, they're only getting better, learning from the sort of players that have come over, the two US players. And, you know, it's exactly the same when we speak to the United players. They rave about the Americans, their attitude, the kind of standards that they bring day in and day out in training. And for me, that can only be a good thing. And I know, you know, you talk about players like Bonnie Shaw and players that, you know, maybe aren't at the same stature yet as these World Cup winners that we're seeing. Of course, that's always going to be a bigger gamble. But I think, you know, we've seen domestically, players don't always fit for clubs, and you're always taking that gamble. It doesn't matter to me, it doesn't matter if they're English, French, you know, Jamaican, whatever they are. It's just about the right fit for the club. And I think that's something that actually it's kind of good. The more you see of the league now, our league is broadcast in so many countries, and people can get a real taste of the league before they come over. Whereas before, women's football was so hard to access. You didn't see too much of leagues. Maybe you only saw internationals. And now, like you say, you can watch Bunny Shaw and see how she's getting on. You see it from afar, which is something that's actually really exciting, you know, for fans to have those kind of prospects and excitement. So yeah, I'm all for it personally. Look, yes, someone's always gonna lose out, I suppose. So if someone comes in, someone's always going out. But particularly for the top 3, top 4, you need a squad that's so big now anyway. You need to be able to rotate a lot, especially when, you know, we were talking earlier about the Champions League, qualification stages, all of this sort of stuff. You know, you're not going to be able to play the same team week in and week out. So there should be enough opportunities for everyone.
Definitely. And I just want to say, on a battle, that is the one. Yeah. So if you don't like foreign players, look at her example.
Genuinely, actually, that is a good point. In the derby, I thought she was unreal. We was all saying how good she was, and she is a good example of someone that has come in and adapted really well, pretty much straight away. So yeah, she looks class.
That's brought us nicely into Man United women's season so far. I think a couple of weeks ago after the derby, I was quite deflated and a bit disappointed, because you think about the game that's just played, don't you? And sometimes, you know, it takes a couple of days for you to step back and think, you know what, we're still in a good position. And it's just brought me onto the subject of what's scrolling along the bottom of the screen, a victim of our own success. So we're currently 3rd, 9 points ahead of Arsenal. If you had gave us that at the start of the season, I'm sure 90% of the fan base would have took that. And I think if we had started off the season in 4th and 5th place and worked our way up to 3rd, we'd be loving it right now. Whereas because we've been so good and we've been top of the league, and Casey Stoney's won back-to-back manager of the month, because we've had all that, all of a sudden we lose 3 out of 4 games, fall back into the exact same position as we would have been. All of a sudden now, fans are a little bit more deflated. I'm not anymore. I'll be honest. I got over it within about 48 hours. But I think the question is, you know, are we victims of our own success? And can you kind of see where we're coming from there, Molly? What would your thoughts be on that one?
Yeah, I think so. I think a lot of these big games because ultimately, I know managers might say otherwise, but ultimately it does come down to how you perform in these really big games. And a lot of it comes down to momentum. And I think when I was watching United at the start of the season and they were doing so well, like regardless of injuries, I remember being at Lee when they played Arsenal, barely had a team to pick, like barely could fill the bench. And it was just going your way. The momentum was building. But we were all still saying, like, we've probably gone out of our way to praise Man United. But that's because you were exceeding expectations. We didn't think that this season, I say we collectively as media, probably wouldn't expect you to be challenging for the title. And I think even Casey said that the aim for this season was always Champions League and to get that third spot. And I think it was so good at the start, and particularly against Chelsea, you know, the experience to come away with something out of that game. I think the players will have learnt a lot, and it might be tough right now. You're thinking, oh, you know, title was probably gone with the form that Chelsea and Man City are in. But what those players will have learnt, what Casey will have learnt, because like Casey's still a relatively inexperienced manager, but has been incredible. And I think it's really about the project there. And, you know, someone like Ona coming in is only going to get better. So I think I can completely understand why fans are frustrated, and of course you're going to be. But you look at Arsenal and they're there or thereabouts and they're getting absolutely slated. But they can still get Champions League. So I think it is just understanding it in the context. And I think United have definitely done better than any of us would have expected, because you look at the points dropped against Reading. We know how difficult Reading are to play. They realistically have always been a bogey team for the traditional top three of Arsenal, City and Chelsea. They've always struggled against Reading. That's not something new. So although it was really disappointing at the time, I think you have to just go, actually, we've done so well that's why it's disappointing. A bit like you said, it is a little bit of a victim of your own success. But for me, if you get top three, that's success.
Yeah, I agree with everything that you just said there. Absolutely, yeah. Natalie, I mean, obviously, I think it's a few days have gone by now. What are your there that like the international breaks there, and Marie said in the comments that the international breaks come at the right time. I thoroughly agree with that as well. Are you kind of drawing a line on that there?
Yeah. It's international break is the right time. I think seeing them playing international, doing well in their international, scoring goals, like I said, everyone's getting the assists. That's only going to boost confidence. I mean, I saw someone saying that it's good to see Jane Ross score too. I mean, I know, she's been on the bench, but it's good for her to get goals. It's good for Press to play and get an assist. It's good for everyone. I know potentially they've not played, but Canada are a hard team. But it's the right time. And like we were saying before about Champions League, about all the qualifications, as long as we're there, don't matter how many qualification rounds. It's better for fans. It might not be better for Casey. Casey might want to just go straight in at the group, but for us, the more games that we can play and go all the way together. I mean, that's the only thing that I hope. August, whenever it is, we can travel. That's what I hope. Because there's going to be some good games, good trips. Every away trip's a good trip. So a Euro away is going to be even better, Yeah,
100%. I can't wait to get a couple of those under my belt. Absolutely, yeah. We're here to talk about the FA as well today. So, Molly, you released a tweet. I think it was yesterday or the day before. I think it was the day before, wasn't it? I can't quite remember now. That has gone hand in hand with this podcast, and it's really got a lot of people talking, and it's got a lot of people excited to probably be on this podcast now, watching you. On that note, there's quite a few people watching, so stick a thumbs up. Thank you for joining in. You put a tweet out regarding what an FA official, or I'm not too sure of what a role is. Joanne, is her name Simpson or something?
Yeah, Jo Simpson. She's the head of refereeing for the women's professional game.
Awesome. And you got a lot of people talking. Could you just kind of elaborate on kind of what you said there? And then I'm sure a lot of people in the comments, and Natalie and myself will have our own views on that as well.
Sure. So to give kind of a bit of background for people that maybe don't know, at the moment, none of the referees in the Women's Super League or the Women's Championship are professional. So, and when I say professional, I mean full-time. I mean, they don't get to focus fully on refereeing as their job. For example, someone like Rebecca Welsh, who is our highest rated referee and has actually recently been promoted, is doing amazing stuff, is now on the elite list. UEFA and I think FIFA as well. Used to work in the NHS. I'm not sure if she still does, but that's the sort of thing we're talking about. You're talking about people that are balancing, day jobs like many fans and whatever are doing. And the equivalent level you have to be to officiate the Women's Super League is the Men's National League. And you can have men or women. There's like different pathways. If you're an elite referee in the women's game, you'll probably be pushed down this route. But Casey Stoney talked about it in the past. Emma Hayes talked about it in the past. When you have these referees, they like to say, look, we shouldn't criticise them too much if we can help it because they're not full-time. So just having this briefing about the development, how we're going to help out the refs. And Joe was talking about all the support, all the things they're going to try and do to make it easy for them, because obviously refereeing abuse is a big topic at the moment. We've seen that in the men's game as well. Obviously a massively difficult job. And I just asked Joe if there was a possibility of full-time refs in the women's game. And the honest answer was no, not really. We don't have enough money to do that. And what I found quite interesting is an interesting insight. You look at the teams that the leagues that do have full-time referees, the Premier League, the Championship, obviously in the men's game, they're not run by the FA. The leagues aren't run by the FA. They're an outside backer. So they put the money in, and then the FA put a little bit of money in, because you're talking about, a salary of, a decent salary, times by how many refs you've got in the pool. You're talking about a lot of money. It soon adds up. So essentially, unless they get a cash injection, which could, of course, happen if the league was to be taken over. Yes, we're going to have a broadcast deal, but actually, when you think of a broadcast deal, when you split it between all of the clubs, it's not a huge amount of money that you're going to have spare. So realistically, we'd need someone to take over the league or the FA to suddenly have a cash windfall, and they've lost loads of money during the pandemic, so that isn't likely. So, yeah, basically for the next 3 years, it's very unlikely to happen.
Listen, I don't like referees, whether but that's the fans. The fans don't like referees, you know what I'm saying? And yeah, referees abuse is too much. But I mean, God, the worst decision I've ever seen was Katie Zellum, the handball. That wasn't a handball, right? And I think even Casey was close to getting sent off that day because she was booting off. Everyone was booting off. It was just, I've never seen anything like it. But you're talking about their taking over. Someone needs to come in and take over. And the way that the PGMOL is set up is each club puts a little bit of money. And I mean, could you not see something like that, Molly? Could you not see? I know it's going to have to take, but could the FA not bring in PGMOL and say to clubs, put in a bit of money? And I know clubs don't have a lot of money, but with sponsorships growing in clubs, we're getting a more one club model. Training grounds are being shared, so more sponsors are coming to the women's game. I'm seeing shirt sponsors for women's only and stuff like that. So it is growing. I think the more TV, the more global it's going to grow. Could you not see them saying something like every club puts in X amount and we maybe get something towards half the pool is professional, half the pool's not?
So to answer the bit about the PGMOL, they're working with them to some extent. So again, I know this winds fans up, so apologies in advance. But the FA say that 89, I think, am I right? Is it 89.4? Have I got that percentage right? I think I have. Something like that. Anyway, a big old percentage of decisions are correct. And they come to that by using the same referee review system that they use with the PGMOL in the Men's Premier League and the Men's Championship. Something like 264, 84, something like that. Decisions in each game are reviewed. But for me, that's part of the problem. You're asking a referee that isn't full-time to go back over 284 decisions a game. Well, then how can you expect them to increase the percentage when they're not full-time? That's just my opinion. And then the question of could clubs put money in, the honest answer is no, I don't think they could, because there's not a team in. Well, actually, did Man United make a profit? Man United,
maybe my small one.
Yeah,
originally.
Every other women's club is making a loss, and at the minute that's the stage we're at. You have to lose the money to ultimately gain the money. Does that make sense? Because you need to put more money in to get the better signings, to win things, to then reap the rewards of being one of the best teams in the women's game when the women's game is growing. And yes, the broadcast deal will help that. But again, when you split that money between 89% of decisions, the reason that feels really high, and you might watch a game and feel like it isn't, is because that's like every decision. So that's like a throw-in being given, things like that. So that because there's so many decisions, the main one, that one, so you can get the big one wrong and all the others right, and then you've got such a small percentage. Does that make sense? But yeah, realistically, I don't think clubs could afford it. Like genuinely, at the bottom of the league is just about professional, and I think we have to raise that standard first for me. But I do also agree with whoever in the comments that just saw it flash up, say we should have professional referees from professional league. I do agree with that, but ultimately it comes down to money, as literally everything does.
I think a lot of those decisions, I actually think it might be more than 89%. I think it might be, but
maybe it's 96.4. That rings a bell.
Yeah, something like massive. But I think it's silly things, though, isn't it? Like an obvious throw-in, or I don't know. It's not necessarily the big decisions, like maybe like a close offside, or when the ball crosses a line in the FA Cup and we get knocked out of it. That's obviously that means a lot more than if a throw-in's gone the right or wrong way. But yeah, I mean, we all had a little bit of a laugh about that, and people in the comments are disagreeing as well. But I understand. Regarding what you tweeted about, for me, the fact that it's over 3 years and there's still no sign of it makes me think that it's not a priority one bit, and they haven't even kind of dangled the carrot a little bit, saying, yeah, we're looking into it, maybe it's going to be next year or the year after. To me, they've completely disregarded it.
I think that's because it's the FA that are saying that, and the thing that would make them consider it is probably if the FA weren't running the league. And the FA that's not me revealing anything. The FA have said that multiple times. The long-term future of the women's game isn't with the FA, because the FA don't run leagues. They run national teams. They don't run leagues. So I think that's why they're not saying, well, in 5 years we'll make them professional, because they probably don't think they'll, be in charge of the league in 5 years.
For me, Mog, it seems like, I don't know, we need someone else to run it. And I know this is what we're going to go on to. I'm sorry, John, if I'm...
I agree with this comment on the screen. I think we're being held back. I think there could be a lot more.
I do. And I think, like what Molly said, it's not their fault, though. FA don't run leagues. We need someone to come in and run it. And I think we had Ben Gilby from Since 71 on, and he said what's happening in Australia, and we're looking to get Ben back on. He's a great guest. But he says in Australia it went independent, and that led to so much more sponsors coming in, so much more money coming in. The state, they're using men's stadiums, it's growing. I mean, look what happened. Tom Gary did a report about Villa and what happened there, the second city derby, and how they couldn't pay that little small fee, and I think having an independent, I don't know whether it is an independent body, whether it would be all 12 clubs that would just have a one-person vote, but having something like that, because I'm seeing like Lewes, they've got Lyle and Scott in, so all these companies are looking and ready, and they're really proactive. Lewes, I don't know if I'm saying it right, Lewisham, Lewes, but I think they're really proactive. They've got really big plans, and I like what they say, and I've been down there once when we were in the championship, and I loved them. They say we're some of the best fans and all this, and it's great. But they're proactive. They put it out there. They push it out there. They want it on telly. Look at now. It should be on telly all the time. They're sort of saying, and I can't help but look at what they're saying and agree with everything they say, and think, yeah, we need to have independent, and we need to push women's football a lot more than what we are. What do you think when you see someone like them and you hear me talking? What's your opinions, Mol?
Well, ironically, I've done 2 of the many interviews I've done today were with people at Lewis and at Lyle and Scott talking about that brand. So keep an eye out for that. That'll be coming out soon. But yeah, I think I agree in principle with the idea of an independent body. The problem with that is once you hand that over, once that goes from being the FA's baby, that's solely down to that independent company. And imagine if that independent company just messed it up. Can you imagine how far would go behind? So then imagine the process of finding the right independent body, because what we've seen with clubs in the Football League, you get these investors, they put money in something, and particularly women's football, you need somebody to care about it. You need somebody to have the right intentions, because it's not going to make you millions of pounds. It's not going to do that. It might do in the future if you treat it well, but right now it's not going to do that. So you need somebody to come in that really cares about it and understands the game and knows the game. Is going to work with the leading people at these clubs, people like Casey, people that have been in the game for years and years. That's the problem. You need the right investor, because look, I don't personally think it will ever happen. I agree. I think it will be an independent company. But there was talk of, the Premier League. How would that work? Would it be like the PL2 is, where each Premier League team has a youth equivalent, or in this case, a women's equivalent? But how would you ever do that? Because then you lose all the independent clubs. So for me, it has to be. I know me and Nat have talked about that in the past. Would that be a good idea for the Premier League to come in and have that equivalent sort of situation going on? But for me, it has to be an independent company. But it's just who and how do you sort of vet that company and make sure that they've got the right intentions, they've got enough money, they've got enough investment? Because if you do have an independent company, you want all of these problems solved. You don't want an independent company that says, well, we can't afford full-time officials either. Because then you think, well, at least with VFA, you have the stability. You have people like, Kelly Simmons, people like that have really, really good intentions, really good understanding of the women's game. You don't want to lose all that for somebody that's just going to put cash in, but isn't going to look after the game's interests.
I think you raised a good point there that I've never really thought of. But whoever takes it over, you'd like to think would be someone who's like business orientated and wants to make a profit out of it, but obviously in the right way. Because if they do that, they'll obviously invest money to make it better, and they will be able to see that if you promote it well, you can make a lot more money back. And the game's just not promoted. Before Man United women's team came about, I hardly saw anything to do with women's football. That's because I was a neutral at the time, but it wasn't in my face at all. If you had a proper business who could actually look at all this kind of stuff, you'd like to think that they'll keep people on board who knows what they're doing already within the game, so they'll keep them on to look after the running of the game, the day-to-day job, but then hire a separate team to actually promote it and look at making things better. But yeah, look, we're going to carry this on shortly, but we have got our competition, and then we'll come back. There's a lot more to talk about. There's a lot of questions from our Twitter account as well. So I want to get all these talking points in. But which is competition, guys. Football Town is helping us get to 3,000 subscribers. We're going to do a draw at the end of this month. So for everybody who's been participating in our quizzes throughout this month and last month, your name is actually in a prize draw at the moment, and we've still got another couple of shows to go before the end of this month. And to be put into that prize draw, you have to answer one question. So please, everybody, get ready. We're doing well. We've got a lot of people who watch this show in the prize draw, so there's a good chance that one of you guys might actually win some merchandise. This week's question is, who was our player of the season in our first season? So our championship season. Okay, so 2018/19, who was our player of the season? And the first 5 correct answers will be put into our prize draw. So we'll look out for those. We'll look out for those in the comments. I know that there's sometimes a bit of a delay, but it'll be interesting to see who's been here from the first season, who's joined in the second season, and obviously who's joined in the third season.
I get mixed up. I had one in my head, but then I remembered, no, it was the other one. So.
Well, they're not coming through as quick. I don't know if they're coming through on your screen.
No, I can't see them. Mol, I've got something to throw back about what you've just said. And guys, still comment, still answer John's question. You're saying Premier League, but you know when it all started? Oh, I'm seeing them coming through now, John. You know when it all started, the Premier League, it was Sky took over and B Sky beat, and then that's when sort of what led to the Premier League, sort of the explosion of it. And obviously now they're talking about this TV deal. We've heard it's likely to be Sky. Do you think then that will, like what John says, that will lead to someone, or it might lead to, I know people are really anti the Premier League, and I get it, they're worried that then it'll lead to just mirror image, but there's no, if they did take it over and say kept on people like Kelly and Laura and all these people, and then brought in someone like Rachel, Brown Finnis and Shivy, and I'm just thinking of Kaz Carney, and these were the people pushing it. And, what says, still you can have your clubs like Lewisham, you can have your clubs like Durham, you can have Reading and Birmingham who are still in it and thereabouts, and did it all like that. Because at the end of the day, Reading, like you said, is a bogey team for everyone. They're a good team, but they're not a Premier League team. But they are putting money into the women's team. So I think as long as you're putting money and you want to be somewhere, they've got the Madejski now. So why would you get rid of a Reading just to mirror the Premier League? If someone came in, can you see like the TV deal leading to then the change potentially? That's what I'm saying.
No, I get what you're saying. And I think initially what you've got to remember is however long we've had women's football, we've had it being on TV, and all they've done is pay for production costs. There's been no money coming into the teams at all. So this first one, yes, it's positive we've got one, but whether or not the actual number will ever be revealed, I don't know. But we shouldn't expect too much. I think what you have to remember is that broadcast deals, as you say, yes, have changed the Premier League, but they've grown year on year. It's been a sort of, yes, it's been an explosion, but in a way it's been like a controlled explosion, to use that analogy. The positive is the TV money will be spread between the teams, and it does mean that the lower teams particularly will really appreciate that, because for them, that percentage of money will be bigger than it is for like a club like United that have bigger resources to start with. So it should help the smaller teams, which is good for the league and the general competition. I don't know why I said it then. But I think it's not going to change it overnight, is what I would say. And I don't know. I'm always interested to hear opinions on this, and I don't know what you guys think about it. But how do you stop women's football just becoming an arms race? How do you stop it just becoming the teams with the most money? Because yes, Reading can compete now, but what happens when, think of the teams that don't currently have a team in the Women's Super League, but they have a Premier League team. Well, if they decided to take notice, and with respect, the same way that United have done, if they decide to take notice, they will progress just because they've got the money. So then what happens? Like Lee Birch was tweeting about it the other day, who's obviously just left London Bees. Even the Championship is all, the teams that are going to get promoted are basically professional. There's 2 or 3 in there now that are professional, and there's another 2 or 3 that are like a hybrid model where they're sort of not quite professional but more than part-time. And I don't know, just a question for everyone, I suppose. Is that a good thing? Is it a bad thing? I don't know how I feel about it, but I just can't see it not turning into that, because football is just like that generally.
Yeah, I can see it turning into that. I mean, I come at it from 2 points. I'm a Man United fan. I want Man United to always win. That will always be my number one game. I want us to sign the best players. We talk about all the best players. So obviously I want us to sign the best players. But then you look at, say, for example, Casey, she let Ebony go. Regardless of whatever, that gives her the chance. She let Palmer go. Regardless of whatever, Palmer is a quality player. And they've gone to Bristol to then boost themselves. And I think Bristol might stay up now because they've got Ebony banging goals in. And I think that's what they need. They need, I don't want to say this in a rude way, but they need to jazz it up, sex it up a bit. Come on, come down and support your team, because I think that's what's going to get it. Fans through the door, more fans through the door, getting regular money, even if it's just a little sponsor, like Billy Bob down the road from Bristol Women wants to give them 10 grand. It's something. He has his own business, but his daughter plays football, loves Ebony, and, I think that's how it's going to have to. But I think, like you say, Man United, for me, I don't know what John thinks, but for me, that's how it's going to work. It's going to work by Chelsea letting go of some of their players and them going down the league and stuff like that, building like that. And so clubs, we let go, say, an Ebony, and she goes to Bristol and she lights it up because we're getting in a Kristen Press, you know what I'm saying? And I always want Man United. Man United will always, and people don't like me when I say this and think, oh, this is Man United fans, they don't care. And no, it's not. I just love my club and I always want Man United to come first and win. If they won a treble, quadruple, I'd be happy. Yeah, everyone else might not be, but I will be happy. But I can see it. The way that I've just said is how I can see it working for other teams.
I have to say, on that point, I always laugh with Wardy about the loan system, and she always says, well, it's because I didn't have any money at Sheffield United and I haven't got any money at Birmingham. But for me, I think it's brilliant how Wardy uses that system. He's brought in players that maybe haven't quite got the game time for whatever reason at the bigger clubs. She's done it with United, done it with a couple of Chelsea youngsters as well, and used it to the advantage of both the player and the club that she's at. And I think we need to do that more in the women's game. We need to use the loan system more.
And that's how I fell in love with Wardy. And then I look at someone like Wardy and you get a quality coach in like that and she can take you anywhere. So trust in your coaches, believe in them, put a little bit of money in them and just let them because I think with the women's game, there's still a lot you can do with a little bit of money. So a team like Lewisham have got, I know you said you're going to interview her, I forget her name, the one who was playing at Brighton, Innie, Rebecca Tong, she's a class player. So, like I said, I want to see the Premier League because I know what it can do. I don't want to see it like a Premier League 2, but they've already shown they can do it. They've already shown they can, the way the Premier League, the way they advertise it, they've got Premier League India. I mean, we've got Rahul on who's from India who's watching. I know they can do it, but it's like you say, you've got to want them to do it for the right reasons. Whether that'll eventually come, don't know. But I understand why people are scared, but for me, it's going to be the top teams, and you need probably a regulator to stop it from the top teams running away.
I just want to bring it back to, you mentioned Sky TV earlier, and that kind of leads into the next point. So if Sky were to take over, they would obviously want regular games. The last thing that they would want is games to be called off. So that brings us on to football pitches. So one of the questions on our All United WFC account was about the state of the pitches. What can be done? What do you think will be done? What's feasible? What's not? Natalie touched on it earlier. If Birmingham spent that extra 500 quid, the game could have played, but they decided not to. It is getting a bit of a joke, and it's a running joke with Everton at the moment, especially against Man United. There's always some sort of hiccup there. But it doesn't look good for the game, does it? So you combine referees and pitches. I mean, even when the game does go on, you've got bad refereeing decisions as well. So before the game's even kicked off, really, you got two big stumbling blocks, really. But I just wanted to hear your kind of thoughts on all the cancellations of games.
I think stadiums generally, for me, is one of the biggest problems we have in women's football. And the simple fact is because it was banned for so long, the men came in and built the stadiums, took the stadiums, and now they're all men's stadiums. So that's a problem that we can't do anything about. That's done now. We have to work with what we've got. And for me, the frustration with Birmingham, yes, it was, the whole situation was ridiculous. 5 minutes before a game, that's not on in a professional league. You just can't do that. But the frustration for me is that we've spoken to Wardy the day before, and she was saying, "Yeah, I still don't know where we're going to play," because there was the option of St Andrews, there was the option of St George's Park, and for me, I think the FA have just got and there has been talk of them doing this, whether or not they will, I don't know. Joe Montemuro said the same. Just have a backup venue that anyone can use, because then you're not having this problem where continually it is, and like you say, it becomes a bit of a running joke, doesn't it? You see the Birmingham at home, and like we're like it as journalists. Are we going to go to that game, get accreditation for that game, and then that game's not going to go ahead, and then we can't go to a live game because we've got nowhere to go, so we're sat watching it on telly like you guys are. It's not ideal. So I think it would make more sense to have a backup venue that anyone in the league could use. I know Sheffield United have already used St George's Park this season when they can use their stadium for whatever reason. And to me, that makes the most sense, just to try and get games on. Obviously, it's not ideal, but it is that problem of, look at Chelsea. They've done a really good job in getting AFC Wimbledon's grounds, and they've made it looks amazing. Like, I know you guys haven't been since it's been painted and redecorated, whatever, and we can't use half of it because of COVID, but they've done a really good job of renovating it. But ultimately, it's still an old stadium, and they're going to need years and investment to make that a better stadium. And it's not something you can do overnight. You can't suddenly pay thousands of pounds for like under soil heating, whatever. Yeah, training facilities, 100%. I agree. You had United. Didn't you couldn't train when it was snowing? You had to go somewhere else. Just basic things like that. And I don't want to sit here and moan at the clubs, because it's not the club's fault, because it's just the way it is. It's a circumstance of women's football being banned for so long that everything was made for the men, the training grounds, the stadiums, everything, and we're just slowly trying to make room for these teams, I suppose.
For me, you just said then, well, and it's so unfortunate. I mean, God, when I read it, my heart broke for, 500 quid, whatever. I don't know. But I just think that game was so big. Villa versus Birmingham. That is the game. That is the game that gets Sky TV probably salivating. You know what I'm saying? Even, it's a big derby. It was derby weekend, it's not great. Just slide it. And I get the FA haven't got money, and I get it's such a little bit of money, but should I don't know.
The problem for me, Nat, is that it's big to you, it's big to me, it's big to those players, it's big to those managers. But clearly,
no, when I say slide it, I mean slide it. Just scrap the fee. Just let them play there anyway.
I know what you're saying. But like, it's big for all of us people that care. It's big for the players, big for the managers. Clearly, it's not big for the people that are paying the money, is it? And that's the problem that we have. We need to change those mindsets. Those clubs need to change those mindsets, because for them it wasn't big. Because if it was, they would have just paid £500. And I think I understand what you're saying. It's just £500, but then you're playing the dangerous game. Once you do that once, like, are you going to do that for every club? Are you going to do it for that club again when the next £500 is needed? So I don't blame the FA for that. I think that's on Birmingham.
It is. And to be honest, I read Tom's piece. He's a good guy. I know I'm plugging him. Sorry, Mo, but I read his piece, and he said about stadiums. He said, when we get Sky in, do you think Sky are going to want to be saying, oh, it's Aston Villa, Arsenal, and Arsenal could catch up Man United and they're building up, and that's the only game, and then bang, it's off. It sounds really sad, but there has to be a consequence then, I think. Then if the £500 to pay a thing, then it's £1,000 and then that's the way you maybe if you've got a Sky game, it doesn't go ahead. And I know we can't, whether, we've seen Sky games. When we had that storm, that for me, that was freak. But, for example, Birmingham, they knew it was snowing there. They knew they could have played that. And if that's a Sky game, bang, it's £1,000 fine. So it's more fine. And I'm not saying, and then that, I know, then waterlogged. I'm just trying to think of things more off the cuff. I'm not saying fine, good.
I think you're right, because I actually can't even remember. I've been to so many games and I don't even know what day I'm on anymore. But not that long ago, like last week or whatever, the week before, we went to a game, whether it was Chelsea, Arsenal, Man City, whatever it was bloody freezing. There was snow all over. Still went ahead because it was on BT. They'd done everything they could possible to get the game on because it was on BT. Whereas we were sat at home saying this game would have just been called off if it weren't on TV. And that's just the reality of it. There's production costs. There's, you're paying the wages of, freelance staff or whatever to come down and film the game. So, of course, when you've got a second city derby that's on the FA player, it's not the same, is it? Mm-hmm. And it is, you're right. That's just a natural reality of big companies coming in. Of course, it will drive the standards because ultimately you're selling the product. And that's the thing with the Premier League. The Premier League to come in, we need to make sure we've got a good enough product first, because the Premier League can come in and sell the product. If the product isn't good enough, then they're not going to want to come in. And I wrote a piece literally on the way back from France in the World Cup in the summer of 2019. And the Premier League had said to the FA, it's not big enough. It's not big enough at the minute for us to come in. And that's the thing. This is a difficult balancing act. We need to grow it with the FA, but we can't grow it to a certain point with the FA because they don't have the funds to grow it. Does that make sense? So that handover is such a nuanced thing. It needs to be exactly the right point. It needs to be big enough. It needs to have gone under the kind of love and care and attention of the FA. But then it needs to be at a point where the FA can't grow it any further. And then the Premier League can come in and sell that product. And we're not there yet, in my opinion. We're not there yet. We need to keep growing it. We need to keep making sure that clubs like Birmingham, and I don't want to pick on Birmingham because there's other clubs as well that are in exactly the same boat, need to be investing more. We need to make sure that solid product is right. And then someone like the Premier League or any investor will have a much easier job of selling that and really improving the game.
Certainly opens your eyes when you start speaking to Molly and other people who are, involved a little bit more, because what Molly said there is, in my opinion, absolutely correct. You can't do it too early. But on the flip side, you also don't want to miss the boat either. Marie in the comments has said, do you think that it's grown too quickly? I always thought yes, because I think it's almost as if the FA can't keep up with what we want. But then listening to yourself there, Molly, it's almost like it's not grown enough yet. So it is, and then that's that balancing act there, isn't it, as well? It is tough. It is tough. You've got to find that balance, haven't you?
I agree with you. I think my honest answer to the question would be some elements have grown too quick, and some elements haven't grown quick enough. And for me, the product at the top has almost grown too quick. The kind of wages, players that we're bringing in. Not that I'm saying we shouldn't do that, because that's amazing, and they totally deserve that. They're incredible players, incredible teams, and fair play to the clubs that have put that money out. But the bit below that is not ready. We don't have. I was talking to Charlotte today from the WSL Academy at United, and she was saying that things like scouts they're just not a thing in the women's game yet, because there hasn't been a need. Like half of the pathway went through the RTCs and things like that. They're not even full-time staff. And that's not at United. United are one of the better ones, is what I'm saying. And they don't have that. Chelsea don't have that. Clubs don't have that. It's like a rare thing to have a scout. Whereas in the men's game, every single club has got a scout in like League 2 or something. And that's just the bit that we have to do now. We have to grow the top, but we have to, and it's Emma Hayes saying, we have to make sure the top drags up the bottom. Can't let the bottom.
Yeah.
It won't work.
Yeah, I agree.
Emma Hayes got so much stick for that, but when she said it, I thought, bang, that she's saying is right. And she sort of said it like the cream rises to the top kind of thing. And I think, and I don't remember, it was a load of them, and I'm not saying their fans all the time, they'll hate me, but Birmingham fans were like coming out, who does she think she is with? And I think Birmingham were quite up there at the time, you know, they were fourth or something, they had Ellen White, they had Ethan Mannion, and had all these players, and then all them players went to City, you know, Hayley Ladd came to us, but it's right now, you know, not in a horrible way, and I know they'll not want to lose them players, but then they get our players say like we got Hayley Ladd from them, and then they got Molly Green, and I think that's the cycle, that's the churn, really. It sounds really horrible, doesn't it, and cold, but you know, the cream will rise to the top. You will see at the top Man United, Arsenal thing, and people will get upset, but at the same time you do see that Reading, you know, that's what I'm saying, and it's about them being able to keep growing. And I mean, I don't know all their books, I don't know all everyone's books, but I mean, the money will definitely help Reading, won't it? Someone like that, because then they brought in Jess Fishlock. She's a great player, and she was part of the reason probably why we lost against them. But then you see like a Wardy doing so well, and I know they're doing this pathway thing with coaches now. So they're taking people like Carla Ward, Charlotte Healy. I know Tanya was on it, Tanya Oxtoby was at Bristol. But like young coaches like that, and trying to make them feel like they can compete against the top. And when you see something like that, do you think that'll help? Because then a Wardy and a Kelly Chambers can compete tactically. They might not have the money, but they can compete tactically in other ways and beat Man United in other ways.
Yeah, because you can't wait for them to beat United in other ways.
Oh, yeah. No. But you know what I mean.
Yeah, actually, we had a briefing with Audrey Cooper yesterday, who is leading up this FA elite coaching pathway, I think it's called, or something like that. And yeah, I was speaking to her about the kind of changing demands that coaches have now, because you think about, you know, bottom end of the championship or whatever a couple of years ago, nobody would have even like been bothered, really. Nobody would have asked the sort of questions that are being asked now. And a lot of this pathway is giving the coaches that tutoring, I suppose, to understand that mentoring, that's the word, mentoring, to understand the things that they have to deal with now, you know, dealing with agents, dealing with directors of clubs, you know, having to communicate to, you know, maybe get that £500 that would have got the game on, you know, and things like that are now dealing with the media, which can be difficult if you've come from a club where you never had no one at a press conference. Like, for example, Wardy at Sheffield United, they just had you know, local reporters probably. Now Wardy's doing presses with national journalists every week. So we do need to make sure that those managers are supported. People like Vicky Jepson, people like Karen Hills that have come through the game and now don't have a job. But we need to make sure that they don't just drop out of the game, because they have the knowledge of the game and we need them back into it. So I think, yeah, 100% it's a positive step, and it's really good to see so many talented young female, and, you know, Jo, she and I know from Ipswich Town, really great young managers coming through. It can only be a positive for the game.
Yeah, someone like Wardy, all she had to deal with at Sheffield is me.
Oh, yeah, that prepared her then, yeah?
Yeah. And I've seen a comment there, John Fry. Sorry, John, I know I'm shouting over you, but I've seen a comment there. We need to find more honour. Fuso, whoever found them deserves a rise. And that's why I'm just going to, sorry, John, I'm coming on to like Brexit anyway. How is Brexit going to help someone like Wardy, who might want to get in someone like Fuso, who's maybe not a Fuso, but, you know, a top quality international player that she can potentially get in, but now this extra little rules come in and stopping them.
Yeah, it's not ideal, is it? And I think the problem is that it is at very different stages of the game. So women's footballers, like, look, I'm not going to lie and say I've sat through however many pages of documents there are about it, because there's a lot, because it's Brexit and there's loads of rules and regulations. But whichever way you look at it, it's harder for women's players, because the money coming in, you know, and everything, it makes it a lot more difficult. And in answer to that question about who scouted the players that you have brought in, that's where people like Katie Stoney have such a harder job in women's football, because in men's football, you have, I don't know, I can't even imagine how many analysts and scouts there are for Man United men. Actually,
I think there's 46 because there's like a group that reports to Woodward's number 2. I've written an article on it myself ages ago, and I looked into it, like who all the head men were, and apparently about 2 years ago they got a team of 46 people together who would report to 2 people who would then go to Woodward. But sorry, just to cut you up there, because I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, there's only Casey who does. Well, Casey brought in the first 21, and I think Casey must have known about Honor and Fusa.
I think it was Casey that said she was doing some commentating back when she used to do commentating at the tournaments, and she was like, "Oh yeah, I was scouting a player while I was there," and that is the reality of it. Like, yeah, it's not just Casey now at Man United, or she has a whole coaching team and backroom staff as well. But managers do have a lot more of a say than they do maybe in men's football when there are so many other, things to look at. Of course, they have a say, but it's not the same. There's more of an influence. I mean, you listen, I've been recently speaking to a lot of people at Chelsea when they had their unbeaten run that was record breaking, and to hear the sort of influence that Emma Hayes has on every single person that comes through that door, it's massive. And it's a similar story. I know it's a similar story with Casey at United because, that's the reason she went there. That's the reason she decided to take on the challenge, was that she told them that she's the one that had the knowledge of the women's game, and that's what United have done really well. And left things to her. I think it was before the last derby we spoke to her about it, and that's what is so good, that she's come in, and in a way it's her baby, because everything about it is in her influence, and that's what you want from any good manager. You want the team to be kind of a mirror image of the manager.
Nat, just before I ask Molly just one last question, I know that we've got to an hour. Can you remember the show that we did with Simon and we spoke about Buddy Shaw?
Yeah.
You mentioned on that show Casey and Tooney was over there.
Yeah, he said, what did you say? He said Ellie, who's the performance.
Oh, no. Yeah.
I think she's performance, or God knows what she is. But she said Martin went out, and he's our assistant manager. But even then, with Man United, you see Ollie and Mickey Phelan go out. Maybe I think they went out and watched Bruno or something. But you don't see Ollie going out and watching a lot of games. And obviously with pandemic, but even pre-pandemic, it's the scouts. Whereas now, potentially, probably, Casey sits at home and she sends Martin out to do it. But he's still assistant manager, so he's still got a job and he's doing another job. And that's what I don't like about the women's game. I don't like how they have to do. It's not like I don't like it, like, who am I to say? But, like when I see Wardy struggle, no, it's not struggle. When I see them doing 10 jobs, I don't, let Casey coach, let Martin be the assistant, bring in a scout to do that, and then they report back to thing. I know they've got a bit more. I know they've got an analyst now. They didn't I think Katie said I did all that work before. So she had to watch our games, analyze it, watch the opposition, analyze that, and then do that. But I think they've got a guy who does that now. And for me, I think with us, Man United fans, people don't like it, but we're coming in saying this. But we're saying it because we're used to a certain level, potentially, of being Man United. And then you see, Casey's doing all the jobs, and you're thinking, well, why have we not got a this coach, that coach? And I think that's all it is. It's just Man United fans wanting to be the same, equal, and wanting a coach, and wanting scouting network, and wanting a team. And it'll come eventually, but we'll keep highlighting it. And with things like, speaking to Molly and speaking to everyone, we'll keep saying, this pitch needs to be better. Like, we'll say it about our own team, and we'll say it about Birmingham.
Yeah, we have to. In the women's game, we all have a responsibility to push it forward. And, I know you very much agree with me on this, Nat, and I think a lot of the players do, actually. We're not cheerleaders. We're not supposed to be cheerleaders. We're supposed to do our jobs, and we're supposed to treat it seriously in the same way that we would any other sport, men's, women's, whatever. That's us doing our job, and that's the respect. We'll criticise when we need to criticise, and we'll praise when we need to praise. And that's, for me anyway, the way we should do it, because they're professional athletes and it's a professional game.
Yeah.
Just one last point, just before you go. I think it might have been Matt who appears on this show quite often as well. He's asked about regarding the structure of the league, regarding the amount of 12, like obviously 12 teams in the league. Is there any possibility or anything in the pipeline, or could you see that changing and obviously expanding? What would the pros and cons be of that as well?
So again, hate to put a dampener on things. We did ask this the other day. Not in the short term. I think realistically, honestly, there was a lot more whispers about it before COVID, and I think it is one of the things that has probably been impacted by COVID, and that's just because the further down you go, whether you go bottom end of the WSL Championship, even worse for tiers 3 and 4, is so difficult for those clubs, and they've been hit the hardest. Southampton are looking to are one of the teams that are really desperate for promotion and relegation to make sure that tiers 3 and 4 aren't just null and voided again, because it's just like, well, they're one of the teams that can do better, they can invest more, but they can't because they're in a league where they're just winning every game, but they can't get out of the league because we can't finish the season because of COVID.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the short answer to that is no, it's not going to happen. There's not going to be a massive restructure. Hopefully, and I know the FA are working really hard to try and sort this out. Hopefully there will be some form of promotion or relegation for those divisions. Hopefully.
Yeah.
But there's no guarantee. It depends. It depends when we come out of lockdown. You know, ultimately a lot of these things come down to a club vote. If clubs decide to vote for a null and void, then, you know, what can you do to some extent? Yeah, we have to try and hope, because for me, it's really disappointing when you see a club like Southampton, you see a club like Ipswich, who obviously had that really good FA Cup run. They can be better than they are, and they can make the leagues better and make them stronger and more competitive. Because at the minute, it's not fair on them winning games by 8 or 10 goals, and it's not fair on who they're playing, who can't compete with that either. So hopefully there'll be a little bit of movement, but I don't think we're suddenly going to have a 16-team WSL or anything like that. And I think part of that is the pandemic that's probably halted that progress. I think it will happen. I think it will increase. And for me, I think we just need 2 teams to go up from the Championship. It's such a competitive division, and you know that from when you was in there.
Yeah.
And since then, even it's completely changed since then.
Yeah.
So yeah, for me, I would personally like to see it. It's something I'd like to see, but I don't think it's going to happen in the short term, at least.
Medium term, maybe.
Medium term, yeah, medium term. We'll go with that now. Let's go with that.
For me, I just want to. I know we're probably finishing up, John. Yeah, it's been a really good show, Mol. Thanks so much for coming on. I will have to get you on with Stuart from the Sints blog, because he's big on all that kind of stuff. We'll have to link you up with that, because that'll be really great. But yeah, it's been a great show, everyone. I loved it. I'll let John see it out. He's the main host.
No, thank you. And thank you for Monday for joining us.
Yes,
we'll have to come back to the beginning, unfortunately, on this one. Yeah, excellent show. Thank you very much. It's really nice just to get someone who's not just a fan, but someone who knows a little bit behind the scenes, because we're forever learning as well, especially me and Nat regarding the women's team. So it's great to hear these kind of points. And we talk about it all day on Twitter, don't we? And in group chats. And it's just nice to kind of get a difference of opinion and a bit more clarity on certain things.
I want to shout out John Hume there, because he comes to watch Man United women a lot. And put his comment on, he comes to watch Man United women a lot, but he's a Southampton, look at me, I'm Sunderland fan. And, he knows the struggles. So, hopefully medium term, it'll be better for him as well as Sunderland. We're always welcome at LSV when we're back, boss.
Excellent. Okay, so we'll say goodbye. Molly, if someone wants to get hold of you in some shape or form, where can they find you on your socials?
Search for me on Twitter. Molly Wrights, Molly_Wrights is my Twitter handle. But yeah, thank you for having me on. Always great to discuss and debate and prove that United fans can debate and are not about to ruin women's football or anything.
Yes.
Maybe we can do a show, something similar like that over
definitely soon.
Definitely, yeah.
Soon.
Natalie, if somebody wants to find
Yeah.
you, where can they grab you?
Natalie_17. Yeah, Nutty Natty B on Instagram. Just hit me up and hit up the Barmy Army, and just let's have that debate. Keep it going. Obviously, find us at All for United Women FC, and just All for United. Is keep growing, keep following us, keep following me, keep following the supporters club, and let's grow the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can find me on Twitter, John Foster MUFC. Thank you to everybody in the comments. Thank you again, Molly. And what day is it today? Friday today, so we're back on Monday. So that will be the next live show, 7:30, 7ish. So tune into that one. Thank you, guys, and we'll see you again soon.